Have you ever imagined that a single appearance on Johnny Carson's sofa could decide your entire career? Some stars walked in and left as legends, the lights shining bright, applause echoing across America. But there were those who disappointed Johnny just once, and never got invited back. No warnings, no second chances. Johnny Carson, famous for his calm and charming demeanor, was actually a strict host with unspoken rules every guest was expected to understand. Cross those lines, even once, and you had written the end of any second chance. These appearances didn't just surprise audiences, they became legendary moments in late-night television history, in ways few could imagine. Today, I'm going to share the stories of 8 celebrities who disappointed Johnny, making their one and only appearance an unforgettable memory, where careers, pride, and tension collided on Carson's iconic sofa. That night at the Tonight Show studio in 1979, the air was tense, stretched tight like a bowstring. Tony Clifton was about to appear, the notorious lounge singer known for his rude and unruly style. On the surface, he seemed like just another guest, but anyone who had worked there long enough knew better. This was no ordinary performer. Clifton was not a real person, he was a character created by Andy Kaufman. A living storm, designed to unsettle the audience and break the norms of entertainment. The moment he arrived backstage, the chaos began. Clifton lifted a whiskey bottle, though it was just water, and immediately acted aggressively toward the staff, testing them with his glare. The atmosphere became tense instantly. Johnny Carson, famous for his calm, pre-show conversations with guests, tried to set up the parameters for the appearance. He wanted a normal exchange, but Clifton completely ignored him. Johnny tried to figure out what Tony was planning, recalled a stage coordinator who witnessed the infamous appearance. Clifton blew cigar smoke in Carson's face and said, "Don't worry, Johnny. Clifton's got this handled." You could see Carson's face stiffen. Just that moment alone would have gotten most people banned immediately. As soon as the segment began, disaster struck. Clifton performed deliberately badly, missing notes, mangling lyrics, and mocking the band. The audience grew increasingly uncomfortable. Midway, he stopped singing to scold a woman in the front row for not paying attention. Carson tried to intervene, but Clifton cut him off, saying, "I'll take care of this myself, Junior." The defining moment came when Clifton, unhappy with the band's accompaniment, threw a glass of water at music director Doc Severson. Carson's legendary calm finally broke. He immediately switched to a commercial. During the break, Clifton vanished, carried out by security, but he continued yelling, "Do you know who I am?" The image haunted everyone who saw it, leaving the night etched into late-night television history. The only time I ever heard Carson curse was when he said, "Get that bomb out of my building and make sure it never comes back." The ban was immediate and absolute. Tony Clifton would never appear again, and Carson's team set up new backstage protocols to prevent similar incidents. Ironically, Andy Kaufman himself was not banned at first. Carson understood that Kaufman was only the man behind the character, though their relationship became tense as Kaufman's provocative style evolved. Johnny valued commitment, even when it caused slight discomfort, a writer later noted. "I had worked on the show, but Clifton had crossed the line from provocative to disrespectful." The Tonight Show was Carson's domain, and the first rule was, Johnny had to be in control. Clifton directly challenged that control, and that was unforgivable. He had previously performed brilliantly on Saturday Night Live years before, and it had been fun. But here, on Carson's stage, chaos was unleashed. That night, smoke, yelling, shocked audience members, disrupted music, it all unfolded like a live movie. Every action Clifton took was a shock, turning the Tonight Show into a legendary spectacle of chaos. Johnny, who usually maintained perfect control, lost his composure, issuing the words I had never heard before, "Get that bomb out of my building and make sure it never comes back." That evening wasn't about lessons or morals. It was a living performance, testing every boundary, a spectacle that anyone witnessing it could never forget. Tony Clifton left his mark not only through provocation but through sheer chaos, while Andy Kaufman, standing behind it all, watched with a sly grin as the world spun around the character he had created. The Tonight Show was no longer just casual conversation and laughter, it became a whirlwind of living chaos, a night forever remembered in late-night television history. Johnny Carson walked into the studio with his signature smile, expecting a typical interview, routine and smooth. But the atmosphere shifted the moment Madonna appeared. She stepped onto the stage with unshakable confidence, eyes sharp, almost challenging, as if Tonight Show itself was fortunate to have her. Carson, who had faced presidents, movie legends, and iconic bands, sensed immediately something unusual. He was accustomed to guests who respected the shared space, yet today, Madonna's demeanor was different. From the very beginning, Carson noticed the awkwardness. Madonna's responses were short, sometimes just 3 or 4 words, her gaze fixed on him without a hint of gesture, forcing him to count the seconds ticking by. The audience could sense it immediately. Carson, usually fluent and charming, appeared stiff, while Madonna radiated tension mixed with indifference. A cameraman remembered she seemed uncomfortable the moment she stepped onto the sofa. Producers had expected a memorable, explosive interview, but they were met with a heavy silence. Even before sitting down, Madonna had kept Carson waiting backstage, a minor detail, yet one that deeply irritated the host. Carson, who valued punctuality and respect, felt this as a subtle challenge. During the interview, Carson tried to keep the rhythm with thoughtful questions, but Madonna responded briefly, almost dismissively. He attempted to find common ground, even joking that they were both public figures. Madonna's reply, as a screenwriter present described, was like a rehearsal on how to show Carson that her fame could not be measured by any standard he knew. The studio fell silent, with only Carson's forced chuckle breaking the tension. Being lectured by a guest, someone he had heard of but never imagined would challenge him so, was uncomfortable. He nearly ended the interview prematurely, but his professionalism carried him through, masking any negative feelings on camera. Backstage, however, the story was different. When the cameras stopped, Johnny turned to the producer and said dryly, "Well, she's exactly what we expected, isn't she?" Everyone understood, Madonna would not be invited back during his tenure. A producer recalled Carson had a long list of guests who had disappointed him on air, and Madonna instantly topped that list. Yet her fate remained brilliant. Years later, when Jay Leno hosted Tonight Show, Madonna returned as a guest. An assistant mentioned that before filming, Leno referenced her previous appearance with Carson. With her signature smile, Madonna seemed to say, "He didn't understand me. I was too real for him." The news reached Carson, still working at NBC, and he simply chuckled, "Too real? How interesting." She took us along with her. Madonna's appearance on Johnny Carson became legendary, a rare moment where a contemporary music icon met a television legend, a clash of attitude, professionalism, and concept of fame. Though never officially banned, that interview remains a lesson in pride, ego, and how a single moment can echo through television history. Robert Blake walked onto The Tonight Show set in 1981 with an energy that immediately set everyone on edge. He was no longer the child actor from the Our Gang comedies, nor the beloved television star from Beretta. What appeared was a man filled with anger, as if the entire Hollywood system had wronged him personally. A producer later recalled that Blake carried a frustration as massive as Mount Rushmore, evident in every gesture, glance, and tone of voice. The crew sensed it immediately. This would not be a routine interview. The plan had been a standard promotional appearance for his film Second-Hand Hearts, yet Blake approached the sofa with a silent declaration of his grievances. He insisted he didn't want to discuss superficial promotional topics. Instead, he launched into complaints about Hollywood, the studio system, and actors being treated like commodities, leaving Carson and the crew stunned. The audience quickly realized something was amiss. What should have been a light-hearted conversation turned into a tense confrontation. Carson, experienced and seasoned, tried to guide the discussion back on track. He asked about Blake's experience working with director Hal Ashby, but Blake almost ignored the question, veering into a passionate monologue about the exploitation of actors, his words far more intense than broadcast standards allowed. A writer present described each sentence as laden with bitterness accumulated over years in the industry. Carson attempted a humorous interjection, only to be cut off by Blake. "I didn't come here to make jokes. I came to tell the truth." Silence fell over the studio. Carson's professional smile remained, but anyone observing closely could see the strain in his eyes. The tension was almost unbearable. The breaking point came when Carson mentioned Blake's beginnings as a child actor. Blake responded with a dark monologue detailing child actor exploitation in language too crude for the network, and when Carson tried to interject, Blake said, "Let me finish. You get to talk every night." A producer noted Carson's face changed, his smile masking a growing discomfort. Blake had crossed a line that Tonight Show had never tolerated. Off camera, Carson's reaction was clear. He told the producer, "Blake doesn't need to come back." The message was simple and absolute. Blake was quietly removed from the guest list for the rest of Carson's tenure. This was especially impactful as Blake's career was fragile. Beretta had ended, and he was transitioning to film roles. Tonight Show had been a crucial platform, now closed to him. Years later, staff would recall that interview with a mix of awe and unease. Blake's aggression, the dark energy, and constant tension foreshadowed his later legal troubles. There was something in Blake that Johnny recognized immediately, one staffer said. Carson had a remarkable ability to read people, he sensed danger in Blake's intensity. Small details lingered in memory too. Blake had shown skill in tap dancing during the show, yet even that talent couldn't diffuse the tension. Carson, with his legendary professionalism, completed the interview without displaying anger on air. But backstage, it was clear, Blake had excluded himself from tonight's show, and Carson had no intention of inviting him back. That appearance became iconic, a stark moment where a fiery star collided with a television legend who maintained absolute control over his stage. In 1975, Truman Capote stepped onto the Tonight Show stage in a state anyone could immediately recognize, intoxicated. It wasn't just alcohol, his movements, speech, and gaze were all disoriented. An assistant producer recalled that from the moment Capote appeared, the crew sensed something was off. The producers debated whether to cancel the segment, but Carson, with his extensive experience, decided to proceed. He said, "He is Truman Capote. Let's see if I can guide him through this." As the segment began, viewers quickly noticed something was wrong. Capote struggled to finish sentences, sometimes losing his train of thought entirely. Johnny Carson, with his calm and seasoned approach, began picking up fragments of Capote's speech, turning them into new questions, even adding ideas to make Capote appear engaged in a coherent conversation. A director noted that Carson was essentially guiding both sides of the interview, skillfully and patiently weaving disjointed pieces into a seamless dialogue. Tension escalated when Capote started making sensitive remarks about other celebrities, often unverified and potentially defamatory. Carson sensed the legal and ethical risks. He deftly steered the conversation, but Capote kept returning to rumors and careless comments. A stage manager recalled, "You could see Johnny becoming increasingly concerned. He was managing everything but couldn't completely control it." The breaking point came when Capote named specific individuals and accusations, prompting Carson to signal the control room to end the show a few minutes early, a rare action for a major guest. Unlike some others, Capote was not banned permanently, as Carson understood the difference between a chronically difficult personality and a talented individual having a particularly bad night. Nevertheless, Capote was effectively put on pause for several years. Carson instructed his scheduling team, "Give Truman time to regroup." Not a lifetime ban, but a clear message that a repeat disaster wouldn't be tolerated. The incident reshaped how Carson handled future guests. The show implemented stricter preparation procedures, closely checking guest readiness before going live and setting clear rules for canceling segments if necessary. A producer noted, after Capote, Johnny's rule was simple: if you can't remember the interview tomorrow, don't do it tonight. Capote never regained his former sharpness. His struggle with alcoholism worsened in the late 1970s. By the time Carson considered inviting him back, Capote's health had declined severely. He passed away in 1984, and the Tonight Show sofa remained empty for him forever. That 1975 interview became a classic lesson in live television, showcasing Carson's ability to manage unpredictability while protecting both guest and program. Capote exemplified the challenges a host may face: immense talent, a unique personality, yet sometimes too fragile under pressure or temptation. Carson demonstrated observation, adjustment, and leadership, combining patience, sensitivity, and planning in a high-stakes moment. That interview reminded the Tonight Show team that respect isn't just for the guest, it's also the ability to safeguard the show, ensuring professionalism and safety at all times. Don Rickles, the master of insult comedy, always stepped onto the Tonight Show stage armed with sharp words and near limitless confidence. He built a persona as a purveyor of biting humor, sparing no one from his jabs. Every appearance followed a familiar pattern. The audience laughed uproariously, Carson feigned offense but secretly enjoyed the performance. Both understood the unspoken rules, and the humor always landed perfectly. Yet in the early 1970s, one appearance of Rickles went too far, beyond even his usual audacity. At first, everything seemed normal. He poked fun at Carson's appearance, hosting style, and even the show itself, expected behavior for the audience. But then, Rickles dared to enter forbidden territory: Carson's personal life, specifically his recent divorce and the substantial alimony he had to pay his ex-wife. In that instant, Johnny's smile vanished. A cameraman recalled that Carson's demeanor changed immediately. The playful spark was gone, replaced by quiet sadness. The audience might not have noticed, but everyone in the crew knew. Rickles, oblivious, continued, feeding off the audience's laughter, while backstage the tension was palpable. Carson completed the segment professionally, yet made his displeasure clear behind the scenes. A producer explained that Carson didn't ban Rickles outright but conveyed to the scheduling team, "Give Don a break for a while." It was understood, Rickles would not return soon. This exile lasted nearly a year, a major shock in a career where Rickles had been a frequent guest. It revealed an important facet of Carson's character. While warm and friendly on camera, he maintained firm boundaries off camera that demanded respect. Even his closest friends had to heed this. Rickles' return was a masterstroke of his own comedic style. At a Dean Martin party, with Carson in the audience but not performing, Rickles pointed at him mid-performance, "I'm not afraid of you." "Okay, maybe a little. Please let me come back on the show." His public apology, delivered humorously, broke the tension. Carson laughed genuinely. Fred Dordova, a longtime producer, recalled, "After that, he said to me, 'I think Don has had enough exile. Let him return.'" Rickles returned to The Tonight Show and remained a beloved guest for the rest of Carson's tenure. From then on, he never joked about Carson's personal life. The incident highlighted that even in the closest and most respectful relationships, boundaries exist. Carson could be jovial and humorous on screen, but he was also a man of principles, and everyone knew it. This appearance of Rickles is a classic lesson in balancing comedy with respect. It reminds us that on live television, limits exist for a reason. Rickles learned his lesson in his own humorous way, and Carson demonstrated discipline and protection of the program while maintaining warmth and tact. It was a moment the Tonight Show crew would never forget, not only for its entertainment value but also as proof of Johnny Carson's subtle yet firm standards. Chevy Chase walked into The Tonight Show studio in 1977 carrying all the confidence of a rising star. His success on Saturday Night Live had propelled him into Hollywood, and everyone thought he was the perfect choice to guest host while Johnny Carson took his routine vacation. Yet, just 1 week behind the desk was enough to ensure Chevy would never return. From the very start, his attitude unsettled everyone around him. A production assistant remembered Chevy acting as if he were the new king of television, while Carson was yesterday's news. He didn't see himself as a temporary stand-in, but as someone shaping the future of the show. Longtime staff, who had built Tonight Show into a cultural phenomenon, felt insulted. Every attempt to guide him was dismissed, replaced by his own rigid vision. During rehearsals, he called the format outdated and suggested updates to appeal to a younger audience. The writers and producers loyal to Johnny saw it as a direct challenge. They had watched Carson meticulously craft each joke, manage timing, and control laughter. And now, a young comedian was telling them they didn't understand humor. On air, it wasn't disaster itself but the awkwardness of Chevy's style that stood out. He tried injecting SNL-style antics, pratfalls, and physical comedy, none of which fit the talk show rhythm. Guests would begin serious stories, only for Chevy to fall off his chair, disrupting the flow and creating tension. Most importantly, Chevy's treatment of the crew was disrespectful. Reports say he dismissed producer advice, belittled crew members, and created a tense environment. When Carson returned, he was surrounded by complaints. Johnny had always protected his staff, valuing their comfort and happiness, and this time he could not ignore it. The decision was clear: Chevy Chase would never appear on The Tonight Show again. There was no public announcement, no dramatic scene. When his PR team reached out to promote a new film, the answer was polite but firm: no more slots. In Hollywood, such a refusal was understood as permanent. Ironically, Carson had once admired Chevy, seeing him as a young talent who could someday inherit the Tonight Show mantle. But 1 week of disrespect erased that impression. Years later, Chevy acknowledged that being shut out from Johnny's show was a significant setback. The Tonight Show platform was crucial for nationwide exposure, and losing that opportunity made him understand the importance of respecting the people and rhythm that had made the program successful. This incident revealed an important side of Johnny Carson: warm and humorous on camera, yet holding firm boundaries off camera. Anyone crossing those lines, even close friends, would face consequences. Carson respected talent, but he respected core values even more: respect for colleagues and crew. Chevy learned this lesson the hard way. Young and confident, he didn't see the long-term impact of his behavior. Johnny silently demonstrated that live television was not only about personal talent, but also about how one interacts with everyone around them, from guests to staff. 1 week as a guest host proved that a single lapse in attitude could block major career opportunities. And so, Chevy Chase vanished from The Tonight Show. No drama, no confrontation, just silent certainty. In the industry, everyone understood: when Carson said no, it was final. That 1 week as guest host marked an indelible mistake in the eyes of the great host. Charles Grodin walked into The Tonight Show studio in 1973 with a calm, almost detached confidence, the kind of poise that had made him beloved in films like The Heartbreak Kid and Heaven Can Wait. Known for his deadpan, dry humor and knack for creating awkward situations for laughs, he seemed perfectly suited to bring that same style to live television. Yet, reality proved otherwise. The moment the segment began, the crew sensed something was off. Grodin arrived with a character he had fully constructed, a confrontational, challenging guest. No one had been informed, neither the production team, the pre-show crew, nor Johnny Carson himself. The audience immediately noticed the tension. Instead of the usual light conversation, Grodin began questioning Carson on why he hadn't read his latest book or seen his newest film. When Carson explained he was too busy, Grodin's responses became increasingly pointed, criticizing Johnny's preparation and professionalism. The audience wasn't sure how to react, the crew wasn't sure whether this was genuine tension or carefully constructed comedy. Cameramen remember the mix of discomfort and curiosity in everyone's eyes. Carson, a master of live television, quickly realized he was being ambushed by a live-action performance. If he acknowledged it too soon, the humor would vanish. If he overreacted, the audience might think he was genuinely upset. He opted for calmness with a subtle, exaggerated response to Grodin's provocations. A writer present that night remarked, he was caught between two extremes, unable to fully participate yet unable to end the segment without appearing mildly frustrated. The audience saw a smiling Johnny, but behind the professional smile lay hidden frustration. The segment concluded without a public disaster, but backstage, Carson was visibly displeased. He made it clear to producers that in the future, any guest attempting such a performance must coordinate with the team beforehand. Although not formally banned, Grodin had to wait years before returning. Representatives seeking promotional slots for his new projects were told schedules were full, a polite but clear message that collaboration with the production team was mandatory for any future appearance. Eventually, Grodin returned in the late 1970s under negotiated terms. Both he and Carson now understood boundaries and the importance of preparation. His confrontational style, once awkward and disruptive, became an eagerly anticipated feature of the show. The mock debates between Grodin and Carson delighted audiences, who relished seeing how Johnny navigated each sly provocation with skill and poise. Grodin later admitted the initial mishap stemmed from failing to inform Carson of his plan. Johnny loves natural reactions, but he also wants to know the general direction of an interview. I put him in a tough spot without warning, and he wasn't pleased. This incident set an important precedent. Any guest wishing to break the standard talk show format had to coordinate beforehand, or risk not being invited back. Charles Grodin's Tonight Show appearances became lessons in coordination, respect, and understanding live television dynamics. They also revealed that while Johnny Carson appeared warm and humorous on stage, he maintained strict boundaries off camera. Talent alone was never enough, ignoring these limits came at a cost. When Grodin finally returned, he had learned how to turn his dry, confrontational humor into a source of entertainment rather than tension. This experience not only reinforced Carson's control over the show but also enhanced the professionalism and predictability of future segments, ensuring audiences could enjoy surprises that were both unexpected and delightful. Bette Davis appeared on The Tonight Show in 1972 as a Hollywood legend, a two-time Oscar winner with decades of iconic performances. When she walked into the studio, everyone sensed the presence of a star whose light and fame seemed to radiate naturally. People respected her, but no one knew this would be Davis's only appearance on Johnny Carson's show. From the beginning of preparations, Bette Davis made it clear she was no ordinary guest. She arrived with a large entourage and a long list of demands, from special lighting and camera angles to specific questions Carson was forbidden to ask. One production coordinator recalled feeling as if they were preparing for royalty, not a talk show interview. She even demanded that no other guests appear during the entire episode, a request unprecedented in the show's history. The Tonight Show team, accustomed to accommodating stars' preferences, tried to meet her requests whenever possible. Special lighting was arranged, restricted topics were briefed to Carson, and Davis was given the coveted first guest spot. Yet, they did not cancel previously scheduled guests, which angered Davis. She did not want to share the spotlight, creating tension even before she stepped on stage. Once the interview began, everything seemed normal to the audience. Carson spoke respectfully and lightly with a Hollywood icon, and Davis responded gracefully. Behind the scenes, however, Davis continuously signaled the camera crew to adjust angles, spoke directly to the lighting director to request mid-segment changes, and at times asked Carson to move because he was standing in the wrong light. A crew member noted, she was essentially directing the show while being interviewed. Carson remained composed, but behind his professional smile, frustration grew. He didn't mind individual preferences, but attempting to control the live broadcast was too much. The breaking point came during a commercial break. Sources say Davis suggested changes upon returning, and Carson, calm but firm, replied, "Ms. Davis, this is how we run the show. If this does not work for you, we can end the interview right now." The segment continued, and Davis completed the interview professionally, but the damage was done. Upon leaving, Carson reportedly told the producer, "I think Ms. Davis has said enough." She was quietly added to the list of guests never to be invited back. The ban wasn't just about diva behavior, it was about attempting to control the production. To Carson, the captain of his ship, no one, not even a legendary star, could take command. This incident had a lasting impact on how The Tonight Show handled demanding guests. The production team established clearer boundaries regarding feasible requests and what could disrupt the program. A longtime producer said, "After Davis, our policy became simple. Every request is considered carefully, but control of the show always remains with us." Betty Davis's appearance taught a lesson in balancing respect for stars with production principles. It also demonstrated that Carson, though warm and humorous on camera, maintained strict boundaries off-screen. Even Hollywood icons could not cross them. These moments also highlight the professionalism required in live television. Audiences may have only seen an engaging conversation between Johnny Carson and Betty Davis, but behind the scenes, a production team had to manage every element to ensure a smooth show. Carson protected his team while respecting the guest, a subtle art often unnoticed. Betty Davis, with all her glamour and talent, left an extraordinary mark on The Tonight Show. Her incident helped Carson's team define essential rules to maintain quality, uphold professionalism, and set a standard for future celebrity guests for years to come. We'll do everything to make you feel comfortable before going on air, but once the cameras start rolling, this is Johnny Carson's show. The stories about Betty Davis, Charles Grodin, Chevy Chase, and Don Rickles aren't just famous interviews, they reveal a side of Carson that few ever saw, a consummate professional, someone with clear boundaries who never forgets those who cross them. Under the stage lights, Johnny could laugh, joke, and make the audience forget all their worries, yet behind that smile was a man who knew exactly how he wanted the show to run. He respected his guests, but he never gave up control of the program, and anyone who unintentionally or deliberately disrupted it quickly felt the consequences. That's why The Tonight Show became a late-night television icon for 3 decades, approachable, flawless, and impossible to replicate. If you want to uncover more never-before-told behind-the-scenes stories about Johnny Carson and his legendary guests, make sure to follow the channel so you don't miss any of these surprising secrets. Laughter, joy, and all the backstage stories are waiting for you.